welcome back to the Butterflies podcast. I'm Maddie. It's my week, and we're talking about getting sick a lot because that's something that happens with turnips and ear infections, etc. I thought I'd take you on a little bit of a story time about the last time I got sick, and then I'll just pass it on to everyone else because I'm out of town this weekend. So, my family's Romanian, so I go and visit every once in a while. And last time I visited, my cousin was sick, and she got me sick. And I didn't know. I thought I was normal until I got home. And I just got really sick. And I went to school. Everything was fine. Not anything bigger than my normal sickness. And then it just kept escalating. Both my ears went out. And then I had infections in my eyes because I just had so much pus. And I ended up having to go to the doctor and get antibiotics for 10 days. And now we're doing chill. So I'm going to pass it back to everyone
very
else.
common with TS is that we have very weak immune systems. And so I personally have a lot of experience with this because I have I have a specific immunodeficiency, and it is literally just basically my body doesn't make antibodies to fight off infections, and so little things can become big things very easily for me. Every year at camp in 22, 23, and last year, I've gotten either COVID or pneumonia. Because usually it starts with someone just having a regular cold, but for me, a regular cold without my infusions. I get infusions once a month. They infuse me with antibodies so that my immune system can actually work. And something very little, like a regular cold, can turn into like pneumonia or like bronchitis or something. For me, it really focuses in my lungs. I don't know why, but it does, and it's very annoying. But like I've been in and out of the ER, the hospital, everything for pneumonia multiple times. 2023 was specifically a really bad year because in January, I started off the new year. I was already like sick on New Year's Eve. I already wasn't feeling good. I was like just kind of achy and not feeling good that night, and then I woke up a couple days later, and my eyes were like crusted shut. I couldn't see well. They were like really red. So we went to the doctor, and I had a pink eye. I had pink eye, and then so I got on antibiotics for that. That cleared up. Then like maybe a week later, while I was still recovering and still dealing with the pink eye, we were in the ER at like maybe midnight or 1 a.m. because my ears, or maybe it was like more like 9 p.m. Either way, we're in the ER sometime late at night, and because I was on the floor sobbing in pain because of my ears, and I know that feeling, and because I also used to get chronic ear infections as a kid. I got one like maybe at least once or twice a month. It was pretty bad.
No, yeah, ear infections are very, very common with TS.
Yeah.
I would get double ear infections all the time when I was little.
Oh, yeah, and so I had double ear infections that night in the ER, and got on antibiotics for that, and then February, I got sick 2 times. I just got a regular, like, cold that hit me kind of hard, like 2 times that month. And in March, I got sick at the beginning of the month, and then I felt a little bit better. And then in like the middle of that month, it was sometime in the morning, and my mom was staying home from work with me that day to watch over me because I really wasn't feeling good. Like, it was probably almost as worse as it has ever been. And I was, and so my mom took me into the ER that day because we I was laying down, not moving a muscle, and my resting heart rate was like 150. I couldn't breathe. It was really bad, and I couldn't.
Oh, gotta love tachycardia.
Oh yeah, and I couldn't walk on my own, so my mom had to like help me hobble into the car. We went to the ER, and we were in there for a few hours, and I had pneumonia. They did a chest X-ray. They had me on like an oxygen tank attached to my wheelchair, and everything. It was so great. Not actually. I also discovered I had like this weird red. It wasn't like a rash, but my skin was really red, even though I wasn't hot. And so the doctor, when the next time the doctor had come in, he took a look, and so I had already done a chest X-ray and found that I had pneumonia. And then he was like, he took one look at my stomach, and it was like on my stomach and my thighs, and he was like, oh yeah, that's scarlet fever. And I was like, oh, all right then. And so they also did, every time I'm in the ER, they do all of the normal tests, like they do strep throat, COVID, flu tests, all that stuff. And so they did all those tests, and I also had strep throat, because I was, when I have pneumonia, I cough up a lot of mucus, and so and then I also get really congested, so there was just a bunch of postnasal drip and everything, so I had strep throat as well, and then so that week I was like fully just on the couch, just not doing anything. I skipped school that week, and then I was on so many meds. I was on like 2 or 3 different antibiotics, and I was on a round of steroids. I think that was for the scarlet fever. And then I felt better. I still had like a lingering cough, and I would cough up mucus every now and then, but overall I was feeling really good. I was back in school the next week, and because when I'm sick, it clears up. Once it starts clearing up, it clears up within like a day or two. So it clears up really fast once it starts getting better. Yeah, like most of my sicknesses will last. This, and another reason we knew to take me into the ER was because most of my sicknesses lasted. Most of my regular sicknesses, when I'm just like cold, when it's just like a regular cold, they last maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 days. But this had been going on for almost, like, my symptoms had been going on for almost a week, and they just kept getting worse until the point where I was brought into the ER. So like that all cleared up, and then in April I got just a regular cold again in the beginning of the month. That only lasted a couple days, and then literally like to the day, exactly a month after I'd already been in the ER for pneumonia in March, all the same symptoms were happening. My resting was like 150 and all that, but my mom was like, well, okay, so we're pretty sure we know what this is, but my mom, it was like 1 a.m, but my mom she called the advice nurse in the ER and was like, hey, what do we do? And she was like, oh yeah, she needs to go. So my mom brings me into the ER again, helps me hobble into the car, wheels me in. They do all the same tests, and what do we know? It's pneumonia. And so that was around maybe 2 or 3 a.m. And then they come in at 4 a.m. again, and they're like, okay, so because you were in the ER for pneumonia last month, and because you got sick earlier this month, we're thinking the pneumonia didn't fully clear up, or it's like back in full swing, or you just somehow contracted it again, which either way, that means your lungs are not doing good at all. So we're going to transfer you to a hospital. We need to figure out which hospital though, and then we'll transfer you. And my mom was like, couldn't I just take her? And they were like, no, because then you'd have to like discharge and then readmit and all that. So if we transfer, It's just easier. So you might be here for a couple more hours. It was 5 p.m. when the transfer people got there. I was in the ER for so long. Although one upside, the food, ER food, is so much better than regular hospital food. I had the best sandwich. I had the best chicken tenders. It was so good. And it was a sign that I was like starting. They also had me on like so many IV things, so I was feeling a little bit okay. So I was eating, and then so 5 p.m. rolls around. They get me in an ambulance. They walk me. They transport me to a different hospital because they couldn't admit me there. I don't know why. I don't think they had any beds. So they transferred me, and then I was I was only supposed to be in the hospital overnight one night, but then the next day they did another chest X-ray, and so I got to the hospital around, I think it was like an hour-long drive, so I was in my room and settled in by like somewhere between 6:30 and 7:30, or just maybe 6 to 7:30, sometime in between that time frame. And the next day after that, I got another chest X-ray, and they were ready to send me home, but they were like, okay. So yeah, long story short, I stayed in the hospital for like a couple days. Yeah, so that was that, and then I was doing fine. I did fine for those. I did fine like May to August, and then I got pneumonia again after camp. All the same stuff. I don't need to walk through all that again. All the same stuff. I did fine. I got some blood tests, and that's when we found out that I had my immunodeficiency. That was in August or September. But they were like, we'll wait and see if you need to do the infusions. Then I got pneumonia again, so they were like, okay, we'll do infusions. And so now I get infusions every month. And yeah, that is my story of being sick, being the sick Victorian child. It's very fun, not actually.
I went to urgent care recently, but not for sickness, for my heart, because it's been funky lately.
Yeah, I'm actually sick right now, but it's just like a cold, so we're vibing.
When I get sick, I don't get sick very frequently, but when I get sick, it lasts forever. I got a cold a couple weeks ago, and I still am sick.
Yeah, no, it's the worst.
And it always turns into me losing my hearing for like 3 days because of ear infections, and like my sinuses aren't as well like formed, I guess.
Yeah. I think with me, like, I don't have any extraordinary sick story like Aspen. I was just a really reckless kid, and all of my ER visits were because I did stupid stuff. Like, I broke my arm when I was a little kid. I have had COVID a couple of times. The first time my mom went to Utah to visit for her mom's funeral, she comes back with COVID and patient zeros every single one of us. Yeah. I've had COVID a couple times, but we're not gonna really get into that because we already have. I don't have any extraordinary sick thing. And I don't know if you want to tell the whole story, but it was around the time I was in the ER in March of 2023. You had to get a blood transfusion, but that wasn't because you were sick. That was because you were in need. I'm not going to get into full in depth with it because I have talked about it before, but basically due to an error in my meds, I ended up getting a really bad period, ended up needing a blood transfusion because I was severely anemic. I went to the ER for 10 hours. That was a fun experience. But that wasn't me being sick. It was just my body deciding, like, you know what? Let's just have a big period. I refer to that time as Bloodmageddon. It was like a month and a half of torture.
Bro, TS is surreal because you'll just be like, you'll get home from school, go to urgent care, and then come back to your homework and then go to school.
No, literally, like, I get home, well, what ended up happening with Bloodmageddon, I had my period through a really heavy period throughout the last week before spring break. Spring break rolls around. A couple of days in, I start to get a bad headache. Then I pass out on my kitchen floor. Not like a dramatic fall thing, but I waited for my mom to make this blood orange cake, and I was waiting for it to cool down. I was so tired because of the anemia, I just fell asleep on the floor. And after my parents found me asleep on the floor, they were like, okay, yeah, no, we're going to the ER. Like, we're gonna get you tested for anemia. So, yeah, TS things.
Hey, Sarah, do you have any weird stories about health, ER, urgent care?
When I was little, I had a lot of trouble getting oxygen, so it wasn't like necessarily like sickness. Like I had to be on like tubes and whatnot. And probably the sickest I've ever been was this December when I got the flu. You had like I'm 130 fever for like a week and a half. Because our immune system's like kind of sucky.
That's never fun. I had so many chronic ear infections as a kid, and I was so prone to them that I think I got ear tubes. I think like 2 or 3 times. And one time I used to do gymnastics at this little kid's gym place, and we were doing that thing where like you all get in that big circle with that giant tarp and you like fling it up and you go under it. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but it's like this big rainbow tarp. You like everybody like lifts it up and then you like run under it and you let it fall on you, and it's super fun. So we were doing that one day. And we also would put someone in the middle and then fling it on their birthday. We'd put someone in the middle of there was like this big circle in the middle. Someone, whoever's birthday it was, would sit in it, and then we'd all like move it up and down and like make them bounce, and it was super fun. And so one day, I think it was my birthday. I don't know. It was sometime, for some reason I was in the middle and they were flinging it up and down for me. And I remember I saw a little green thing fall out onto it. And I was like, oh, that's my ear tube. And then I went up to my mom when she came to pick me up, and I was like, Mom, I think my ear tube fell out. And she was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, ear tubes are very, very weird. But I had them a lot. I think with me as a kid, my biggest like health hurdle was migraines. Like, I am a person who gets headaches very easy. If you know me, you know I get headaches. It's like I can sit down on the floor for like 1 or 2 hours and I will pop back up with a headache. And as a kid, I'd get them. And they were also accompanied by fevers. And one time, I don't know why, I had this really bad fever and I was staying in my mom's room. And she had this really fluffy blanket. And I do not know why. I started having a fever dream, and I said, I'd like to thank the Academy. And my mom looks at me, and she was like, what the hell? Like, excuse me? Who are you thanking and why? And she was like, huh? And I was just like, I don't know.
For me, my main issue is energy fluctuations. You guys know this. I get very, very tired very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, my thing at this point is passing out on a FaceTime call.
Yep.
My energy fluctuations are so bad. I'll just like pass out in the middle of something.
Yeah, I'm very good at recognizing people's breathing patterns. I'm very good at recognizing it and listening for it. And so once I hear Greta's breathing pattern change and I can tell that she's asleep, I give it like 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes. And then I'll just text her and be like, good night, you fell asleep, and then I'll leave the call.
Yeah, no, I'm infamous for falling asleep.
Yeah.
So
It's
Yeah.
actually so bad. I actually fell asleep on a call last night.
Yeah, no. Poor Sarah had to listen to me yap about the 21 Pilots lore until she fell asleep like 3 nights in a row at camp this year.
It was great. I just can't stay awake to save my life.
Yeah, no, that's so real.
Oh God, I put Sarah through so much during my first year at camp. Like, poor girl was subjected to all-nighter after all-nighter.
Yeah.
And Aspen and Lily go
all-nighters
insane.
with your roommates. It's the best.
It's such a vibe.
Yeah. No, and I was terrified of my roommate that year, so I would take refuge in your guys' room until she noticed and was like, let's get to know each other better. And so we played a game and then we clicked.
And then now you guys are inseparable.
Lily.
Yes. I love Lily.
We love Lily.
But no, I will just I'll be like having so much energy, and then all of a sudden 2 minutes later I'm like passed out.
Yeah.
Aspen sees the worst of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's gotten really bad at this point.
Indeed.
I just don't even care. I just fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, I was sitting in Spanish class, and my eyes were like shut, and I was asleep. And this has never happened to me before, bro.
One time in 7th grade, it was the hybrid year, and so I chose to go in person because in-person school is way better for my grades. It's way easier for me to keep my grades up in in-person school. And so I went to in-person school and I had my science class that day. And it was like a 2.5 hour period. And it was like from 8 to like 10 or 10:30. It was awful. And so one time I fell asleep in class because my science teacher was taking forever to figure out this one video. And so I fell asleep and I dreamt that I was still in my seat in the classroom, awake and everything. And I dreamt that one of my elementary school friends, who wasn't even at that school, came in and like threw something in the trash can. And then I woke up because it was so embarrassing. My teacher finally found the video that she was looking for, but her volume's all the way up, so it and whoever was on the video yelled. And so it scared me awake, and so I sat up in my seat. I jolted up in my seat so fast, and everybody looked around at me, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh God,
yeah.
Yeah, no. And another thing for me for sleeping, to get me very tired, I need to be if I'm in a cold and dark environment, I will fall asleep, no matter what time of day it is. Especially during the summer, if I'm out walking in the heat and then I get into a cool air conditioned car. One time I was with Sophia, we walked around Davis, and her mom picked us up, and it was maybe 100 degrees that day. Her mom picked us up and she had the AC on full blast, and it was maybe a 20-minute drive back to her house. I fell asleep that whole drive. I was trying so hard to stay awake, but I could not.
I can confirm. And I realized that about Aspen because I went to visit them a couple weeks ago. And their fan is always full blast at night, so I was just like, oh, okay, so I'd wake up in the morning to being freezing.
Oh yeah, no, I need Arctic temperatures to sleep. It's actually it's concerning.
I've slept in class once for a good 10 minutes because as a kid, one of my favorite shows was Nailed It on Netflix. I stayed up all night watching Nailed It, and I ended up falling asleep in class for 10 minutes until the girl sitting next to me, I think her name was Daisy. Shout out to Daisy Slusser. And she was just like, "Are you okay? You passed out." And I was like, "Oh, I'm fine."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go in and out in class way more than I like to admit, because, I'm on meds for my tics and anxiety and stuff, and that, it started after that, so I always blame it on that, but I'll go from being completely alert to just being out, but it will be I'm not, consistently asleep, but I'll be awake for like 45 seconds and drift off for 30 seconds and then.
Okay,
So
sorry
it's
guys, pause this. This is really funny. Pause this. This is really funny. One of the purples is going to a Taylor Swift tribute performance. I'm sorry, I found that really funny. You guys can resume.
Sarah, I completely forget that you have tics. Oh my god.
But that's because I'm on so many meds that they completely suppress, because otherwise I would die. That's a fun like health sickness thing. I have Tourette's, but my tic is like stomach muscle spasm, so not fun. And it was so bad, like having it happen at all like completely destroys me. So I went on like 2 different meds for it, and now they're like gone. So yay.
Yeah, I think another one of yours is like an eye thingy, like your eye will randomly twitch.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Actually, that's super linked to exhaustion too. That one mainly happens when I get tired.
Yeah, no, that happens to me if I haven't slept well, or if I just one of the signs that my body is tired. It doesn't happen very often. It's very, very, very rare, but it does happen. Yeah, no, my eye will just twitch uncontrollably, and it's really weird. And I think it's mostly when I don't get I think it happens when I get a very short amount of sleep and it's not good quality, because as long as I get a good quality sleep, it doesn't matter how long I'm asleep for. As long as I get good quality sleep, I'm fine. But I think when I don't get good quality sleep, that's when my eye like twitches, and it's really weird.
No, I'm the same with sleep, where it's quality over quantity.
Yeah. It's definitely. And my family's like, you need to sleep more, you need to sleep more, you need more hours of sleep. Like, I get about 6 to 7 hours of sleep a night. On school nights. But that's not, as long as I get, like, I'm in a very good, like, deep sleep. Even if I, like, wake up a couple times, it does not matter how long I'm asleep for, as long as my sleep is good, I'm fine. Much. I've gone over all of my kind of weird health things.
Me too.
My main weird one is energy fluctuations and my heart right now. My heart has been like abnormally high, and it's gotten to be like an issue at this point. Like, I'm always really dizzy, really like spacey, fatigued. I feel like I'm gonna faint most of the time. And while all this is happening, my heart rate's like 140 sitting down.
So yeah,
Were y'all
so
able
in
to hear that?
conclusion, our immune systems kind of suck.
Really quickly, my friend Lily, another one of our TS friends, her immune system also sucks because she gets sick a lot, and randomly in the last, she's gotten better, but her body decided to like just start shutting down, kind of like she all of a sudden like was getting super dizzy, and she ended up getting diagnosed with POTS, and she ended up getting diagnosed with POTS, and then a couple months later, she her like stomach just started, like, she couldn't really eat anything, her stomach, and they figured out like, okay, her stomach is like mostly paralyzed. Great. And she's definitely gotten a lot better. I was asking her how she was doing with all that maybe a month ago, and she was like, oh yeah, it's pretty much all except for the POTS, obviously. My stomach is fine again. And I was like, that's really weird that it just started to like, it just said bye bye for a couple months. It was very weird. But yeah, our immune systems and just bodies love to not work.
Nope, there's always something going on with someone who has TS, health-wise. There's just always something going on. Whether that's from skin to ears to... That concludes our episode today. We will be back next week, and we will have, hopefully, Ava, our special guest from a couple months ago, will be coming back to wrap up what her research project was about.